my secrets to how I grow my Anthurium, and I'm showing you my whole collection. Let's go! Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, my name is Roos, my pronouns are she, her, and today I'm gonna show you all of my Anthurium and give you my care tips for them, because even though I've only been growing them for about 3 years, I feel like I've been quite successful. I grew this from a tiny seedling, so I hope these tips are helpful. Before we start, give the video a thumbs up because that really helps. And if you have any questions left, leave them in the comments below. So let's start with the main ingredient for growing plants successfully, light. And I'm set up here because behind me, you can see a few of the Anthurium that I'm growing out in my living room quite successfully. I'll take you around the house to show you my different setups, but in general, most of my aroids here are in my south-facing window, philodendron, monstera, alocasia, but the Anthurium I pull back a little bit more. In general, I am known to give my plants a little bit too much light sometimes, but with Anthurium you can quickly see that because the leaves get bleached, as it's called, which means that they get lighter green. Sometimes they also get a slight pattern on the leaves. I'll show you some good examples in a minute. In general, I grow them in a lot less light than my other aroids. These ones in the living room are all under 50 foot candle, which is quite low, and they seem to be thriving. If you saw those big leaves, that is what happened in these low light conditions. This is my Anthurium pallidiflorum that I bought a few months ago at a amazing plant market, and this is the latest leaf it grew for me. It's really big. Unfortunately, it was next to where I work all day, so I got the leaf damaged, as you can see here. This was the previous biggest leaf and is the same size as you can see, but much wider. It's hard to show you because they're so long. These are actually really nice and shimmery in the sunlight. Oh, so beautiful. And it is growing a new leaf here already, so I'm really hopeful that that is going to be as long as this one or even more long. Look at this! And that I recently moved here, which is about 2 meters away from my south-facing window. It is very close to the door, so I've gotten some leaves stuck in there as well. That's a different issue. On the other side of the room, we have this one. This actually used to live back there, but I recently moved it a little bit closer to the light. This is an Anthurium blackjack that I got from an import, and it has increased in size a lot. I'll give you some tips for that in a second. Look at this newest leaf, the biggest one. It is a papillilaminum hybrid type of thing. I don't know exactly what is inside. It's beautiful. And this is actually quite light for what it can be. I think it can be much darker. But like I said, I tend to give my plants a little bit more light, which I think is the opposite from most people. If we then lastly look at the center of the room, which is about 5 meters away from the south-facing window, we have the big crystallinum. Notice that it was increasing in size very, very quickly here. I have a theory that with lower light, the leaves get a little bit bigger, which I will show you upstairs with my regale. Could also be, of course, a lot of other reasons. This is not a scientific project. It was just something that I noticed and that I'm gonna experiment with more. Let me show you some of the leaves up close. This is one of the smaller ones it still has. Here is one. Oh, it's focusing on my face only. Hello. You want some attention? Okay. And you can see how dark they are. This is not what you're going to see in my other Anthurium, which I am working on. Look at that. Here's a few more. Here's one at the top. It's holding on to a lot of leaves as well. And there is a flower growing, but I actually don't like to have flowers on my Anthurium. I know a lot of Anthurium growers love the flowers and try to make seeds with them and everything. I prefer the leaves, so I just snap off the flowers. Quick update on this one. It's making a new leaf! I'm so excited. I hope it gets as big as the other ones. Then next to that, we have 2 more Anthurium. I'll show you this one first. This is a dark no ID hybrid with a queen Anthurium that I got from a friend as a tiny seedling as well. I really love the shape of the leaves. It's not very velvety at all, but they look kind of cool. The shape is cool, and I'm curious because it has a Warocqueanum in there to see if they're gonna be more elongated as they continue. And this one might also be a good one to show you what medium I use. So I grow all my Anthuriums basically in a airy soil mix. I used to mix it myself with 1/3 perlite, 1/3 bark, and 1/3 non-peat soil mix. But a while ago I started working with Soil Ninja, and they have an amazing Anthurium mix ready, which feels very luxurious. I just grabbed a bag and put it in the pot instead of having to mix. If you want to give it a try, you can use my code PLANTWITHROOS for a discount. And then at the top here, I use a little bit of sphagnum moss to pack around the base of the stem to help activate and guide down aerial roots. For me, it's helped a lot, maybe also with sizing them up, but also giving the plant more stability. The moss increases the humidity a little bit and helps to activate more aerial roots around the stem. And then I use the moss to push them down towards the soil so that they actually root into the pot and give the plant more stability, more nutrient intake, more water intake and everything. So far, it's worked really, really well for me, and I highly recommend doing this. My boyfriend just vacuum cleaned and now I'm putting moss all over the floor again. Shh. If a plant is still a baby, I will make that mix a little bit more soil heavy so that they don't dry out too quickly. And I usually keep the babies in a high humidity environment, so that also makes them a little bit happier quicker. This is an Anthurium forgeti that I got as a seed from a friend. Now, it doesn't show a lot of forgeti yet. You can see here a closed sinus. Oh, actually, this new leaf, I don't know if we can focus on it because it's still very small, but it does show a fully closed sinus like we would expect on Anthurium forgeti, so that is nice. If you don't know, Anthurium babies, or Anthurium seedlings as we call them, are never really showing signs of what they're gonna be. So if you are a newbie and you're buying something small, like I did, you have to be really careful to use a trusted seller. And even if you are sure what the parents are, a seedling can look completely different from its siblings. So it's something to keep in mind. You never really know what you're gonna get. Here you can see a little bit of that bleaching, by the way, which is why I moved it to a different spot with a little bit less light. If you're wondering what these things are, I use predatory bugs to treat for pests. So I have preventative thrips and spider mite bug eaters in there. These are little mites. I highly recommend using predatory mites. It makes your treatment so much easier. And I also have these little things to catch some fungus gnats. The last one that's out in the living room, I've already showed you a little bit. I'm quite proud of this one. This is an Anthurium bassiae hybrid. Here you can see another very nice dark leaf. This one, me and my friends pollinated a plant from one of my friends. We did forget what we pollinated with, so that's why it's an unknown hybrid. We know that the mother plant was a species affinity bassiae, but the father, it could have been a papillilaminum, could have been a queen, a forgeti, crystallinum. We will have to wait and see. My friend thinks it was a papillilaminum, hoya, and from the look of these leaves, I could see that. But again, this is not a very mature plant yet, so we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, we pollinated this ourselves, then collected the seeds, grew them out into, this is my biggest one at the moment. And you can see it is really nice and dark because I moved it to a darker spot. Like I said before, this one is quite bleached still from the previous spot. And it's making a new leaf. Can you see it here? Very nice. One thing to know, especially with more harder to find Anthurium, the leaves are super sensitive, especially when they are still new or when they're still soft or hardening. I like to call it floppy when the leaf is, you'll see. If you grow Anthurium, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They are so sensitive. If you get a tiny little scratch on it, like this leaf was stuck in the petiolar sheath, the place where it comes out of the petiole of the previous leaf. Me getting it out with my nail, which is not smart or recommended, don't do that. But that marking will maybe show up as quite a big mark on the mature leaf because it stretches out so much that all the little markings just get stretched out as well. It is normal to not have perfect looking leaves. Actually, this is not a good example because this plant looks pretty perfect.
Note to the filmmakers, Margot Robbie is the wrong person to cast if you want to make this point.
But you'll see a lot of other ones that don't. How could I forget? I said that was the last one in the living room. It was absolutely not. This is the last one that lives in the living room. This is my King of Spades that I also got from Indonesia as a very, very small plant. So I'm very proud of how this is growing. You can see this newest leaf got very damaged. It might be because it was growing out in the living room with lower humidity, or it may have gotten stuck, you never know. You can see on this one, oh, it's heavy. There are some more brown edges. This is more normal for Anthurium leaves to look like. This is the current biggest leaf. And then I think this one is gonna be even bigger. Ooh, that's actually something fun to know as well. You can kind of guess how big they're gonna be by the thickness of the petiole. So if you don't know, this is a leaf. The stick that connects the leaf to the stem of the plant, the base of the plant, That is called the petiole, some plant 101 if you're new. And the thickness of this petiole is gonna suggest the size of the leaf. So if we compare these two here, this is the original leaf, this is the new leaf, you can kind of see that this new one over here is a little bit thicker, which probably means that the new leaf is gonna be a little bit bigger than the previous one. And that's of course what we love to see, even if it's damaged and it's also getting hindered by this other leaf that it's stuck against. So if you have a new leaf and you want to keep it perfect, make sure nothing is touching it and you're not scratching it or anything. Let me just tie up my hair because it is hot. All right, that's better. Mickey wanted to come and say hello. So this is my small terrarium, my first terrarium. It is a very basic setup. I have separate videos to show you exactly what is in there. There's only a few small plants in here, and this is one. This is okay, these names are very confusing. Anthurium papillilaminum legend Sipanas crossed with papillilaminum old clone. I got this in a recent unboxing video, which you may have seen. And it has grown really well. This leaf came out in my care. You can see a little bit of the bleaching that I've been talking about. And then it started to make this leaf, which I feel like is gonna be a little bit less big, but it recently moved into the terrarium. So maybe it's a little bit too much light actually. I love the pink and the red colors, golden almost, of new Anthurium leaves. And here you can see how much it likes growing in here. Roots are even coming out the bottom. I might have to move this, but for now I'm happy with how it's going. Then I have two little seeds that are sprouting. They're very hard to see, they're very small still. They are a hybrid of Carla blackiae and dark phoenix. So if you know Anthurium, the Carla blackiae is super hyped. Then I also have this little pot, another Carla blackiae hybrid. This is Carla blackiae number 7 crossed with Dressleri RGF2. Dressleri is also a plant that I would love to grow one day. Here's a little one, and then here's a little bit of a bigger one. So sometimes also you have to be lucky with the plant. Sometimes one plant will grow very, very slowly and struggle a lot, and other plants, this goes actually for all plants that I've had so far, and other plants just are thriving and growing quickly. And if you grow out seeds yourself, of course you can keep the best ones, the happiest ones, the quickest ones, whatever else you like, the darkest ones, the most veiny ones. There's two more pots in here. This one is 2 seedlings of Anthurium dark phoenix crossed with Luxurians platinum. Now you'll see in a little bit I have a lot of Luxurians hybrids. I'm not a huge fan of Luxurians myself, but I'm interested to see what these grow out to be. And here you can see the soil being a little bit less chunky. So this is more perlite and soil, not as much bark. And then the last one and the most exciting one in this terrarium, this is my Anthurium Carla blackiae, the pure one, selfed, A1 selfed, and it's making a new leaf. So it currently has 4 leaves, and you can see hopefully the first leaf here is tiny, smaller than my nail, and then the second leaf is a little bit bigger, almost as big as my nail. Third leaf is as big as my nail. And then this one, immediately, as you can see here, is a lot bigger. So hopefully the next leaf is going to be even bigger, especially as seedlings. They can be very quick and very easy to size up if you give them the right care, of course. I have them in this terrarium basically so that I can see them. My Anthurium prop boxes are a little bit harder to get to. So these special ones that just arrived recently, I want to have in my vision. It does help to give them higher humidity. From my experience, they love high humidity and they don't necessarily need good airflow. I actually have no fans or any airflow in my prop boxes. This terrarium does have airflow, by the way. I use computer fans in here, but mainly they are in here so that I can keep an eye on them. I think it's a little bit too bright, but my prop boxes are currently also being too bright with the sunny weather, so. This is my big terrarium. I got this at the end of 2021, so not very long ago. And I specifically bought it to grow Anthurium in because my queen Anthurium especially was getting too big for the small terrarium, and I wanted to keep that in higher humidity. Some plants are a little bit more fussy or just more special to me. I love queen Anthuriums, Warocqueanums. So that's why I built this whole thing. Unfortunately, how I grow my Anthurium in there is not ideal for them, I've noticed. I'm growing them in these little stone pots, again in the same kind of soil mix and high humidity, but unfortunately these pots don't hold water very well, or I don't know exactly why, but it seems like my queen, especially in here, dries out too quickly. Also, I'm currently struggling with a thrips problem in here, so you'll see a lot of damage and a very sad yellowing leaf. But it is also growing a new leaf, so I'm very, very excited about that. And I'm hoping to keep this one beautiful and happy. I am actively using predatory bugs to treat against the thrips, so fingers crossed that that is working. A very quick editing update because the queen leaf is unfurling and it is stunning. Look at her. There is some thrips damage at the top, so I'm keeping an eye on her. But she's already this big. I can't wait to see it fully harden off. The main pest that I've struggled with Anthurium is thrips. I have a little sticky tape on my finger. I use that sometimes to catch the main, like all the big ones that I can find. And I treat with good bugs, predatory mites and predatory thrips as well for the adult thrips. I have separate videos about this, but even with very consistent updates of good bugs, it is still very tricky. I am doing my best, but as you can see here, I caught quite a few mature ones and I've been treating for several months now in the terrarium. I've also heard spider mites can be an issue, but since I use the predatory mites, I feel like for spider mites, they work much quicker. So I use them as a preventative method and I haven't had spider mites since, but thrips are a continuing issue. I think for many houseplant keepers, they suck. At the bottom, I also have an unknown Anthurium hybrid in here that is struggling a little bit to grow. I think it's not getting enough light, and also maybe it's a little bit too wet in the bottom part of the terrarium. So you see a few broken petioles where the new leaves have not made it into existence, unfortunately. On the other side, in a similar pot, I have an Anthurium forgeti, one without any silver. I absolutely love Anthurium like that with no silver veins, so I love this one. It is actually growing a new leaf as well right now. It's doing really well. I'm very happy with this one. It seems to be doing a lot better than the queen. Maybe because the queen is bigger, it needs a bigger pot, but I can't make this pot bigger. I don't know exactly what is the issue, but the forgeti is doing well. I forgot to show you one in the small terrarium. Hold on, I'm gonna get it. I forget this baby. This is my Anthurium Wenlingeri. Yes. Thank you, brain. So this is the one that gets really long leaves like the pallidiflorum that I showed you in the beginning. Only these inflorescences create spirals once they're mature. And you see these sometimes in the awesome botanical gardens, like the one in Berlin has one. This one was struggling in the big terrarium as well. So I moved it to the small terrarium. You can see here there was one previous leaf that tried to come out and struggled, but it looks like it is making another leaf. So it's trying again. I think the better airflow of the smaller terrarium helps and a little bit more light. When my Anthurium plants are small, I actually like to give them quite a lot of light because it helps them to grow faster, bigger. Then afterwards you can start to focus on more darker leaves and stuff, but I just want the plants to develop quickly first, which you'll see a little bit more in a second. Let me pop this back and then show you the last Anthurium in the big terrarium. So this one is still in a pot in the terrarium. There's a lot of stuff falling on the floor. I don't think my boyfriend's going to be happy with me. But this is Anthurium querumalens. I bought this at my event in March, and people actually warned me that this was a very tricky, hard to grow plant. You can see a lot of damage on this leaf. That is mostly due to snails. So they've eaten holes all along this leaf. Unfortunately, I'm trying to get rid of the snails in the terrarium, but it's kind of hard. So people warned me that this was a tricky plant, but it has grown 2 leaves for me so far without any issues, apart from the snail issue. So maybe I'm just lucky with this plant, or maybe it really likes life in the terrarium. A very, very beautiful plant. Again, there's no silver on the veins, which I personally really love. On these shelves, I have a few baby plants again, and then I'll show you this box as well, where I have a ton of Anthurium queens. First of all, we have this Anthurium vici that I grew from a seed, which I'm quite proud of. This is actually the smallest one. I sold the other 3 that I had. So you can't really see anything vici about it yet. You don't see the ribs, you don't see the long leaves. And that is showing exactly what I meant with a seedling just not showing many of the characteristics of the final plant yet. It is making a new leaf, and as you can see, it sizes up so quickly that I'm hoping the next one will show a little bit more of the Vici King Anthurium characteristics. Actually, I can also show you this one. This is a mint variegated Anthurium that I got in an import as an extra little plant. I'm gonna give it to someone who is very excited about it. Me personally, I am not super impressed with it. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. I mean, it's pretty. It's cute, but I prefer big velvet green leaves or red. Sometimes I also grow them like this. This is just a little food container that I'm repurposing as a small, like a miniature terrarium or a prop box, basically. These are 2 Anthurium forgety dark form that I got as seeds. Very cute. The last 2 that I have here are these 2. This light is so much better. This is a little queen Anthurium that I got from my friend Mirte from the plant account. And it has grown a lot. The smallest leaf had a little bit of variegation on it. Can you see that little line? And then this is the latest leaf it grew for me. So again, it is sizing up quite quickly, but you can also see the bleaching effect here very clearly. It is growing fast and light green, and there's like markings on it. These markings are called There's a specific word for these markings that I cannot think of right now, but it often in plants that get enough light means that they need more nutrients. So it's a nutrient deficiency. In this case, I'm pretty sure that it is because of the light, because I'm bleaching them. Sorry, buddy. The other one is this one. It is a Nagapaxa Papillilaminum Fort Sherman crossed with Papillilaminum old clone, and it's making a new leaf, so I'm very excited. This one is another one that I got from that import that I recently filmed, and you'll see in the other box as well all the little plants that I got from Bunny Jungle. I mostly enjoyed the velvet ones that came in that box, so they are out for me to see a little bit more. And you can see how beautifully golden this new leaf is. I'm looking at it on the screen all the time. Sorry, I get really annoyed when other YouTubers just look at themselves all the time while they're talking to you. So I always try to look you in the eye, but I'm looking at the plants now. Look at how beautiful that is. The brown golden shimmer. Again, this is probably could be a little bit darker because it's getting quite a lot of light. But for now, I'm happy with how it is going and growing. I just realized I didn't show you where these grow. So the Forgety sits here underneath a very not high quality grow light. And then the Vichy and Queen and the Nagapaxa all live here. This is a better grow light, so that's also why they're bleaching probably. And the Queen and the Nagapaxa live in a little closed off terrarium thingy. See, so a little bit more humidity for those. Lastly, we have this box that is filled with Anthurium queens. I am making a separate video about acclimating your Anthurium. Once you get one in your house, what do you do? That's what this box and project is for, but let me take you inside. As you can see, there are a bunch of queens in here. Some of them are currently growing new leaves. There's a little bit of a flicker from the grow light. Sorry about that. It's definitely a very exciting project with a lot of new queen leaves in here. I'm growing them in this box for higher humidity with leca at the bottom and then next to my grow lights to give them a little bit of additional light. Now let's move on to the kitchen because that up there is where most of the plants live. Speaking of watering, I water these when the soil has gone completely dry. Although when they are in the prop boxes, the soil often doesn't get dry at all. So keep that in mind if you are using prop boxes. Don't make the soil too moisture holding because it might rot the roots. In general, for me, I water my Anthurium in the living room every week. It is now currently summer and quite warm where I live. When it's winter here, they get less light and less warmth, so I often water them a lot less. Sometimes every 2 weeks, sometimes even every 3 weeks. These are my humidity boxes. This is how I grow most of my Anthurium, especially when they're still small or when they're acclimating in my space. I found that the higher humidity definitely helps them to grow faster, to root faster, and also to grow bigger leaves faster. But that is not science, that is just my experience. The ones that I grow out in the living room in lower humidity grow quite a lot slower, and they can also get stuck leaves because the humidity helps them to slide out smoothly. Let's just open them up. This is one of the smaller boxes with those new plants that I got from Bunny Jungle in there. You can definitely see a little bit of the bleaching happening in this box because they are getting more light. Here's another new leaf, by the way. Very nice. There's a new leaf. This is a new leaf that is almost yellow looking compared to the older leaves. So that's showing me it's definitely getting too much light. And then my favorite one is this one. This is a red crystallinum hybrid, and you can definitely see it. Look at that beautiful new leaf, super red. I'm very happy to own this. So fast growth and lots of new leaves, but definitely some bleaching that most Anthurium growers would not appreciate. I mean, this just looks like a yellow leaf. That's not what we want. This is the next one. It contains a few small plants, especially at the bottom here. I think those are crystallinum, and a few a little bit bigger plants. This is, I don't know what it is, some kind of questionable hybrid. This is Anthurium villanorum, which honestly, I personally don't really enjoy growing. Sorry, buddy. This, I think, is another crystallinum. Yeah, questionable crystallinum. I don't know what they are. This is a crystallinum magnificum hybrid baby that I got from someone. And then this is my favorite one in this box, an Anthurium forgeti, again, with very little silver veins. And see here, when the leaves are younger, there is not yet the closed sinus. This one as well, that just looks like a crystallinum or magnificum leaf. But then it turns into this. So beautiful. That's it for this box. It's not as exciting anymore because I moved quite a few of the more exciting plants to other places, including the living room. This one is the biggest box down here, the tallest one, and it currently only has a few plants inside. One is my Anthurium forgeti. This is my original one that I named Alfonso. It was completely struggling, but once I moved it into this prop box, it started to grow very well, very quickly again. The other Anthurium in here is my Anthurium Reggie. This is actually my small one. I took a few cuttings a while ago, and this was one of the slower growing ones. It does have a new leaf. Look at that. What a beauty! I really hope it's gonna size up like the one I'm gonna show you upstairs, but oh, it's stunning. You can even see it through the plastic. It's so beautiful. And as you can see, they're actually too tall for this box, so I have to find a new solution or move them into the living room. You can see the tops of the leaves are getting damaged or folded over. It's not ideal, but it is what it is. The last few Anthurium I own are upstairs. This one I'm trying not to touch too much because it is the one that might have a virus. I've shown that on my channel before. If you look at that leaf, you can see weird markings and they are on every leaf. So that is not a good sign. I did test this plant thoroughly and it came back all negative, but I'm still a little bit worried and I might actually throw it away. This is Anthurium magnificum. I don't know if I told you that already. And this is not a pure one because the petioles are not fully square. If you don't know, a real magnificum has 4 edges or like ruffles around the stem that make it look like a square. This one looks more like a D shape, if that makes sense. Can you see the little edges on it? It's kind of hard to see. In person, it's a lot more clear to see. So if you ever see a magnificum kind of looking plant, check the petioles and you'll see what I mean. Above my bed, I have one Anthurium. This is my Anthurium velvet mask, which again I got from Indonesia. I absolutely love it, and I've been growing it out here in my bedroom since I got the grow lights, the Soltech grow lights. If you want to use my link or code, you can get a discount, Plant with Roos. I will link it in the description as well. I did notice some of the leaves were curling up like this a little bit in the beginning, but now I know I have to keep an eye on them when it's growing a new leaf. I want to make sure that it stays moist enough, not too dry. Here's some good examples of realistic looking Anthurium leaves. They don't always look pretty. Look at this one. I still think it's pretty, but damaged. This was the newest leaf. As you can see, it is very, very dark, which I absolutely love, and big. If we do a head test, I have to kind of move back to get it on the shot. I love the velvet of this. There's not a lot of silver either. And then over here, we have a new leaf, plus a flower, by the way, which we're just gonna break off like I did before. I can't wait to see how big this one gets. Actually, there's one thing I haven't talked about yet, and that is my trick to get the leaves to size up more. So one thing I quickly do, which is generally not recommended, is to move it to a bigger pot. If my Anthurium are root bound, I quickly give it a repot. As you can see, this is quite a big pot. I have learned from my friends at Kekieki, but also from my own experience, that if you give it a bigger pot, quite quickly, then the leaves also start to be bigger. As soon as I see it being root bound, roots coming out the bottom, I usually repot. It's editing Rose here again. I don't mean to put this, for example, in a huge pot now, but this with so many roots, I would definitely repot already. Generally, people say that Anthurium and aroids like to be root bound. I disagree and I do it differently. That's what I mean. So this would go in a maybe 1 or 2 sizes bigger pot, so it has a little bit more space to move and doesn't come out the bottom anymore. And yes, Mickey is being adorable as always. Okay, back to the video. While we're up here, actually, I'm also reminded we don't have heating upstairs, so it can get very, very cold here. We've had winters of 6 degrees Celsius here, which is just above freezing inside in our bedroom. So the plants were not very happy. Any philodendron that I kept up here actually died back quite a lot, got a lot of cold damage. So far, I feel like Anthurium can take the cold a lot better than at least philodendron. My monstera are also pretty good with the cold. We are actually doing a home renovation quite soon after the summer, so hopefully this winter it won't be as cold and all my plants on the shelves will be fine. I didn't have this in 6 degrees. This got down to maybe like 10, 13 degrees, but still quite cold for inside. I have 2 more to show you in my other window. This is my north-facing window towards the garden, and this is the box where I keep my regale and big queen Anthurium in. I created this box because my plants were getting too tall for my other box, and these did not live in my terrariums. You'll see why in a second. So I saw from a friend to just put 2 boxes on top of each other, and I thought that was genius. It's working really, really well. This is why they're not in a terrarium and didn't fit in a smaller box. This plant is growing on a moss pole. This is my queen Anthurium, and I said the big one, but this was actually my small one before I got all the other small ones. But as you can see, it's also sizing up nicely. This had a little bit of a growth stunt here, can you see? I think it got stuck against something. But in general, I am really enjoying growing these on moss poles, and maybe you can already see why. All the aerial roots everywhere. So I put this lady on a moss pole when she was still about this tall with the stem. So she's grown up to here quite a lot already. But even when she was this small, the roots immediately grew all the way up into the moss pole and came out the top right away. So that went really fast. Now you can see roots just lapping around, just hanging around here as well because the humidity is so high in the prop box. There is a snail! There is a tiny little snail on this leaf that I'm gonna throw outside because they can eat a leaf like no one else. Bye! I will never kill them, but I will definitely put them outside. So yes, the moss pole is making this stem quite a lot thicker quite quickly, and it seems to just really enjoy being able to grab upwards. One of my friends, Jan, Sydney plant guy, said that it might be because once they're getting bigger, they want to have more support, so they grow up first to get support up, and then they can start to grow bigger, which I think makes sense because they're growing in trees. But I was really surprised because I had never heard of putting an Anthurium on a moss pole, so I was very happy when I saw Jan do it and to also try it. I definitely think it is a great success, and I would love to try others on moss poles as well. I just don't have the space. I am gonna renovate my bathroom as well with the other renovation that I was talking about, and then hopefully we'll have a closed, warm, humid room that I can put a lot more of my Anthurium. This is the last Anthurium in my collection. This is Reggie, one of my first ones that I bought, a regale. I absolutely love regales. They often struggle to keep more than 1 leaf, but it has come back like nothing else for me several times already. This was a stump, and then I put it in a plastic baggie for higher humidity, and it grew this thing. Huge leaf. Now, to be clear, my regale stump still had healthy roots. If you have a stump or a piece of stem that doesn't have roots or leaves, then I've had success growing it in something like this. There is leca balls at the bottom and then moss on top. And then I put the stump in there and closed it and just put it somewhere where I didn't think about it for a long time because it can take forever. The leca helps to keep the moss moist, but then also the moss at the top doesn't get too soaking wet if you pour too much water in there. Just wanted to add this in case you have a bare stem. And this is the one that I was talking about. This was the second leaf, and if you look at the petioles, they are definitely similar in size, so it could have been the same or even bigger than a previous leaf, but I gave it more light, and I feel like that's why it just stopped growing. Here you can definitely also see a little bit more the light green color, the bleaching that I've been talking about all video long. Here you can see the moss helping the roots down into the soil. The stem has gotten quite nice and thick as well. And there's a little point, so there's a new leaf coming and a bunch of roots coming out the bottom. So this plant is definitely happy. I am going to test it out. This is a north facing window, but it is summer, so it is quite bright. I'm hoping that the next leaf will get a little bit bigger. If not, I'm going to take it back, like move it away from the window a little bit more to test out my theory of less light making bigger leaves. But that is a totally unsubstantiated or unresearched claim. It is just something that I've noticed and I'm gonna play around with to test it out a little bit more. And I think that's it already for this video. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Making these types of videos really scares me because I want to give you all the information and not forget anything. Like I'm just remembering now, I didn't say anything about fertilizer. I fertilize my plants regularly in the growing season especially, but also if they're actively growing in the winter season. I like to use organic liquid fertilizers. I'm currently working with Farbio, testing out their products. They're an organic brand based in Germany. So if you're in Europe, you can try them out and use my code PLANTWITHROOS for a discount. And I give that to my plants currently about every other week. I can't think of anything else that I forgot, but that's why I don't often make these informative videos. I'm just someone who enjoys plants, but I really want to give you all the information that I can, and I always forget at least one thing. Hopefully this time I didn't. If I did, let me know in the comments and I'll make another video or I'll answer you in the comments. And if there's a lot of questions, I'll do a separate Q&A video about Anthurium if you like that. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe below if you haven't already. Leave a nice comment. Remember, you can join my Patreon and YouTube membership if you want more content and more chat with me. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!